All right, everybody. I'm here with our good friend Pablo from Bull Bitcoin. And I think your maybe official title's Chief Bitcoin Evangelist or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's right. I've been playing with that for a while. It was a job I wanted to give myself. So Bull Bitcoin gave me free reign on my job title. So I chose Bitcoin Evangelist. I'm looking at moving into a new one, though. I wouldn't mind like ed dev, educational developer. I've always wanted to be a Bitcoin developer, but my computer skills are not up there. So I might just be like a Bitcoin education developer eventually. But I do everything from educational resources to meetups, a lot of community support. So I'm out there in public a lot of the time talking about Bitcoin. So it kind of fits with the title evangelist. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool that Bull Bitcoin does a lot of that stuff, is real community events, especially in Quebec, Montreal, Quebec City, I believe, as well. Do you guys do them elsewhere?
Well, what we try and do, I was just sending out like a pulse survey to all of the meetups across Canada in the last few weeks, just to find out how everybody's getting on. Bull Bitcoin, a lot of the team is based here in Quebec, including myself. So we go to a lot of the meetups as close as they can get. I drive to Montreal on a regular. I help organize that one, which is a monthly meet. And this week, actually, I'm pretty busy. I got a meetup tonight in Trois-Rivières, which is in between Quebec and Montreal. And then tomorrow we have a Quebec meet. So I'm like double booked. I got today and tomorrow going to meetups and just helping out. So that's really cool. That's one of my passions as well. That's how I got involved in Bull Bitcoin, was through the meetups. Just participating, volunteering, just being the guy who really wanted to make a difference. So Bull Bitcoin stepped to it and they're like, hey, we sponsor meetups. We want to see meetups work. Would you like to help us out with that? So that was like one of my first responsibilities here at Bull, was to make sure the meetups are successful. So we're seeing like a lot of meetups from coast to coast. They're still plugging away. After COVID, they were super, super popular. People wanted to get out and meet other Bitcoiners. And then they've kind of, they found like a core group. But what I always try and drive at is bringing new people in, making sure they're as educational as possible, and that people who have questions about Bitcoin can go to a meetup and get those questions answered, or at least meet people who can help them in the future as well. Because, it's a big network of Bitcoiners, and we like to help each other out as well, offline, as well as just through forums and things like that and podcasts. So it's nice to see Bitcoiners gathering together and having a good time and getting to know each other.
I see the real need for it. I feel really lucky because here at Rockstar, I'm surrounded by so many Bitcoiners. So it's like all day, every day in the office, we get to talk about it if we want to. But if you don't have that, if you don't have a community of like-minded people to talk to, let's say about Bitcoin, but it could be anything. For us at Rockstar, it's real estate investors or freedom seekers, not just Bitcoin advocates or people who want to learn more about that, but like just the power of having other people to talk to about it. And then, so you also don't drive like your partner crazy by just talking to them about it all the time. Like just trying to find other people is so important. It's so important.
Yeah.
To build your conviction, to build relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And like business, like Bitcoin is a network on the cryptocurrency level, but there's also a social network as well that operates there as well. So it is good to know people nearby who are also forward thinking like yourself, who are aligned with what money should be. And then once you've built that kind of foundation of like, okay, we're Bitcoiners, we hang out, you can do other stuff as well. You can help people with projects. You get to find out what people do for a living, how they work, how they earn their money. You can support their businesses. You can collaborate on different projects as well. So it really becomes like a powerful network. It's Bitcoin for me in general. Like I didn't go to some big fancy private school or anything, but it feels like I did because I just through Bitcoin got plugged into this network of really forward thinking, proactive people who are, either online and remote or even in my local town. So to anybody kind of out there in a smaller town, the meetup might be like 3-4 hours drive away. That's probably about the time you should start thinking about setting up your own. And you can always reach out to myself here at Bull and we'll help bootstrap your meetup so that you'll find other local Bitcoiners in the small area where you may be. And we want to see those smaller meetups start to pop from coast to coast as well.
Wow. Yeah, it's really cool, man. So Bull Bitcoin has had some recent big announcements. It's got a brand new platform and you have a bunch of new services. And so part of the reason I wanted to talk to you today was to ask you about what are all these services that people can use beyond just buying and selling Bitcoin on Bull Bitcoin. Like I find there's not enough people that in our Rockstar members we speak to in our network, many are surprised that there's other types of services available and they're not sure what they are or how to use them or if they apply to them. So just wanted to ask you, like, what are some of the other things that you guys offer beyond just buying and selling Bitcoin?
Yeah, for sure. So the new platform launched in Canada about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But it was kind of a genesis. It's a project that's been in development for a long, long, long time. What essentially we had to do was rebuild the entire service from the back end through to the front end. It's been a huge overhaul. It's taken years and years, and it's taken about 18 developers a lot of time to be able to build this. But Canada is the last country to benefit from this. We actually launched it officially in Europe. It was launched across Europe with our launch in France and then throughout the Eurozone. So the Europeans have been using this for a while. It's very similar to the Costa Rica exchange that we have as well. But because we have so many clients here in Canada, so many people using the platform, we migrated the Canadian side of business last. So now everybody across Mexico, Europe, Canada, and Costa Rica are using the same platform, essentially. First of all, one of the biggest modifications is just the look. I kind of liked the old platform. I got used to it. I knew where to find a lot of the things, but there was that sidebar menu and you kind of had to delve a little bit to be able to find what you wanted to do. So like as soon as you log into the new platform, you'll just see it's super obvious. It's very intuitive. You don't need to search around for what you need to do. It's very like push the button, get the job done. So that's really awesome. It just looks really sleek and it performs super well. Also on the mobile device. So, if you want to buy, sell Bitcoin outside of the house, you're on your cell phone. The old website was very much web page looky, but now it's technically a web app. So the entire page will resize and refit to your cell phone or wherever you may be, your tablet. It looks great on all of those. What else have we got? Oh, I'm super happy about this one because the old platform didn't have much multilingual support. But as you can see, Bull Bitcoin's kind of grown out into being an international company now with different areas that we offer our services in. So right here in Quebec, one of the big advantages is we've got the entire web page is now available in French. So there's no longer like you have to know exactly the terms in English to be able to get the job done. We have French, English, Spanish, and Italian at the moment. And we're working on even more languages. I was chatting with the guys earlier. We were like, hey, we should even bring out like Bull Bitcoin in Latin or something, because the way we've rebuilt everything is we can add on more and more and more features in the next few weeks and months. So the scope of the thing, it's only just beginning really. Yeah. But to come back to your question about what's different about, outside of the buy and sell, basically, people who are used to the regular buy and sell, you'll notice that it's a lot faster. The way the new web app works is our backend, our fiat transactions are super quick. So Interac used to be a manual process. We used to have people on the keyboard accepting and sending out Interac transfers. Nowadays, it's all automated. So anything that's like an e-transfer, an email e-transfer, you'll see it drop like very, very quickly into your bank account both ways. So you can fund super quick and you can also like sell or withdraw super quick. So that's a really useful feature. Speaking of withdrawals, if you had like a balance, you used to be able to sell Bitcoin into your balance and you'd have like Canadian dollars sat there on your Bull Bitcoin account. People who wanted to withdraw that money had to contact us through the support chat. Nowadays, there's an option that you can withdraw fiat. So you can sell if you see the prices like ripping and you're like, hey, I want to sell, but I'll leave it there for a day or two. Then you can move it out to your bank account later. So the withdraw funds is a brand new feature that a lot of people will be happy about. What else? In terms of the payments, now we always had bills. You were always able to pay people through Interac, through bank transfers, or through a bill payment. That's something in Canada that we've had for a long, long time. But nowadays, the way it works is because we're operating in different countries, you can now also pay people in every area we operate in. So GG and I and Louis, we did a video yesterday that just launched, which basically explains how you can send money, you can send payments to people in different areas. So GG, to demonstrate, he sent like $20 from France. He sold Bitcoin in France and it arrived on my bank account here in Canada. So I could buy myself a beer. And he did the same thing from France over into Mexico as well. So it's not that we operate in different countries as an isolated service or company. We've actually kind of connected these countries together now. So if you are, I don't know, if you want to buy real estate in Mexico, you can use Bull Bitcoin. If you want to pay a restaurant meal in France, you can go and wine and cheese it down in France by selling some Bitcoin. So we've kind of connected together all of our countries as well, which is super powerful. especially to people like if you're traveling in Europe or if you're snowbirding down in Mexico, or for even like diaspora, people who are Mexican living in Canada or Europeans living in Mexico, wherever it may be, you can pretty much just send the money where it needs to go across all these regions. So that's super, super, super powerful.
Is that facilitated through the Bitcoin network?
Yeah, essentially,
like
we receive the Bitcoin, whether it be on-chain, Lightning, or Liquid, and then we'll convert that into fiat, and through our banking partners, we'll be able to send it into bank accounts.
Oh, okay. So it is through fiat, though.
Yeah. The person will be receiving fiat, because if it was just Bitcoin to Bitcoin, you'd send it peer-to-peer directly, right? You'd just be able to send them the Bitcoin and they'd receive it wherever they are. But we act as like, it's super useful for people who aren't Bitcoin native yet. Let's say you want to pay a taxi driver in Mexico. You only have Bitcoin. They don't accept Bitcoin. You can actually pay them using their debit card, or in Mexico, they have telephone-based banking. So you just get their cell phone number, and you can sell Bitcoin with Bull Bitcoin, and then very quickly they'll receive fiat, Mexican pesos, into their bank account. So yeah, the taxi driver doesn't even need to know that it was a Bitcoin transaction. You can live on a Bitcoin standard in all of these different countries now, and even pay people who don't know about Bitcoin, which is awesome.
It would be an instantaneous payment?
Yeah, it's more or less instantaneous. It'll take maybe like a few seconds for the Lightning to confirm, and then it'll be sent out. So it happens within a minute or two. But it's super, super, super quick. It's quick enough that you can be able to close the transaction while sat in the back of the taxi cab as you arrive at the destination. Yeah.
Holy smokes. Yeah. The bills, that's crazy. I didn't know all that. I just knew like in Canada, I could pay, my property tax bill using Bitcoin if I wanted to, or a credit card bill using the bills feature. That's insane.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so all of the features that we had in Canada still exist. We're slowly migrating over things like the Post Canada feature. We're still keeping. It's not yet live on the new app, but it'll be coming in the next few days. That was what was originally known as the no KYC platform that people loved, because you were able to create a very light account, light verification with an email address and a phone number, and then deposit cash at Canada Post. That would be sent to Bull Bitcoin, and with that, you could buy Bitcoin. So the rules changed maybe about a year and a half ago, where there's an ID verification that happens at the post office, but it still allows you to fund your account without having to talk to your bank. So if you've got cash, you can just drop it at Canada Post, it arrives at Bull Bitcoin, and you buy Bitcoin with that. So it removes the bank from any transaction. Essentially what we can provide using this new platform, the old features and the new features that had come, is you don't really need a bank account. Fiat purchases, you could buy a prepaid credit card, prepaid debit card on Visa. You could even just have a regular credit card and pay off the debt at the end of the month using Bull Bitcoin. Essentially, like I'm less and less logging into my online banking, and more just heading to bullbitcoin.com.
Really? So for yourself personally, you're starting to do more and more of that?
In Canada here, yeah. It's not like I'm living down in El Salvador or Costa Rica or somewhere that's a bit more Bitcoin native. But even here in Canada, the Bitcoin standard has pretty much arrived for people who want to get familiar with what we offer. And this new platform is it's the gateway to being able to do that.
Wow. Would there be any sort of like tax reporting built in at a certain point to help track with cap gains if you are going to sell Bitcoin? Yeah, totally. Just like with the old platform, like all of the old transactions have been stored on a legacy page. So you can still get access to the old transactions before the migration onto this new website. And everything that's on the new website is downloadable as a CSV file, which is pretty much just a spreadsheet file. So you can put that into whatever Excel spreadsheet software you use, or you can just email it off to your accountant, and all the numbers are there if you need them or when you need them. Okay, so if I go buy a cup of coffee and I use Bitcoin to do it, then how would that be? How can you track all that though? That's always confused me how you would track that. It depends what type of layers you're using, and it depends we offer at Bull Bitcoin the three different networks on Bitcoin. So we use on-chain for large transactions, which are confirmed on the blockchain every 10 minutes. So that 10 minutes can be a bit of a lag. So we also offer Lightning, which is a much quicker, lower fee network that we offer. And we also offer Liquid as well. And each one of those networks all has its own advantages. So moving from one to the other
there's different aspects of which network you want to use. So for example, if I was to buy a coffee, I'd be using the Lightning Network for that type of thing. It's low fees, instant confirmation, super easy to do, and you can basically like tap and pay. It's as easy as whatever we use in fiat with the Canadian dollar. In terms of the registration, like I said, you have access to all of the transactions via Bull Bitcoin, and any wallet you use will also log all of those transactions. I think the kind of thing is that we become our own bank account now. So you are the gatekeeper to all your transaction history. You can see how everything's worked, but it's not being shared with any third parties. You have to kind of manage your own transaction history, which is something we're not used to, but it's certainly very powerful. You can bookkeep, you can launch a node, you can manage your deposits and withdrawals, and all of that's super transparent to yourself. But on the Bitcoin network, it's anonymous to some degree. There are some ways that you can behave that will, for example, if you're using the same address over and over and over again on chain, that's kind of like bad hygiene. There's some aspects of like privacy hygiene as well that can be used so that you're protecting how much Bitcoin you have from others and things like this. But essentially, you're in the driver's seat with a lot of these things, and for some people, it makes them feel a bit unsure about what to do. But once you start using Bitcoin on a monthly, yearly basis, you can see that it's very much you have access to all the information you need.
Yeah. So what I started personally doing is I use the Lightning Network now with Bull to purchase, and I send it to something like Moon Wallet, and then I let enough Bitcoin build up there that I have 1 million sats or 0.01 Bitcoin just for UTXO management, and then I'll pull that one UTXO of about 1 million sats into my cold storage from there. That way I can make smaller recurring payments, like $200, $300 here and there, just as I get some free cash in my life, pull it off to Moon. And then once I get 1 million sats or 0.01 Bitcoin, pull it off. And I've got a nice big chunk of UTXO just to help manage my fees in the future. What are your thoughts on that?
That's like a really good strategy to use, to be honest. And it's something that if you've been buying Bitcoin, if you're listening to this and you've been buying Bitcoin for a while now, you've probably got used to fees being relatively low. So you haven't really seen the impact of buying small chunks of Bitcoin. We call them UTXOs, unspent transaction outputs. If you have lots of these UTXOs, if you want to spend them, in the future, it could be quite costly in terms of fees, because what they have to do is they have to batch all of these little bits of Bitcoin together to be able to spend. So let's say you want to make a big purchase. The work that the computer has to do to pull all of these little bits of Bitcoin together is how the fees are derived. So the more you make the network work, the more fees you'll pay. So if you've been buying like $10 on a daily basis, you'll have like daily bits of Bitcoin. So one of the good things about the new platform is it'll intuitively decide on which is the best network for you to use. So if I want to buy like $20 of Bitcoin on bullbitcoin.com, it'll actually default to Lightning. And then that way, one of the advantages of what you're doing there, Anthony, is like stacking up small amounts on Lightning and then consolidating it into one chunk of Bitcoin, and then storing that somewhere safely. So that then in the future, if you want to make that big purchase, you're not sending lots of different bits of Bitcoin to make the purchase. You're actually sending one huge chunk. It's like the difference between like a lot of $5 bills or $100 bill, right? So you've got that equivalent of a $100 bill. You send off that transaction, it'll come back with lower fees. And right about now, it's not a huge issue. You'll pay like a couple more dollars, if that more, maybe like cents on the dollar. But in terms of in the future, when Bitcoin grows and the adoption increases and we see like huge investors like we're already seeing pile into Bitcoin, the space on the blockchain will become more and more competitive. So to be able to get your transaction through, you'll have to increase the fees. So if in, let's say, a year's time or 5 years' time or 10 years' time, it could even be in the next few weeks that we see fees increase. We've seen it in the past. And it's then that you'll start to notice that managing these UTXOs becomes more important. So what we do here at Bull Bitcoin is we try and help you into that process now in early 2025, so that later on down the line, it's not something that you wish you'd done. So yeah, stacking on things like Lightning or Liquid and then consolidating into the main Bitcoin network is a super good strategy to do. Yeah. Or you can, we were thinking about this the other day here at Bull Bitcoin, though. I think Francis is going to bring out something shortly, either a blog post or Twitter Spaces. We did a lot of an analysis about economically, which is the best approach. I get asked this question quite a lot. Hey, I want to invest in Bitcoin. Should I DCA? A lot of people like the idea of DCAing. It'll smooth out the price. If price goes up, price comes down. If you're buying on a regular, you'll smooth out that buy-in price. But what we were looking into today and over the past few days is the outcome of DCA versus lump sum. Now, I've seen both sides of the argument with people on YouTube, podcasts, people saying, oh, you're best off to DCA, you're best off to lump sum. From what we can see, based on these UTXOs and based on the consolidations and based on the transactions you'll have to do after a DCA, it seems that lump sum is, in terms of fees and expenditure and time and everything, the cheapest option at the moment with the way the prices worked and things like this, which is quite surprising. I was surprised to hear that. But yeah, obviously some people don't have that lump sum sat around. So DCA can be like a good monthly strategy. But for people who are thinking about just a lump sum invested into Bitcoin, lump sum investing can be can work out cheaper.
I guess it depends, like lump sum when, right? Because it depends what the price is when you go in with that lump.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you guys even look at that?
Hey everyone, before we dive back into the podcast, I've got a quick shout out about the Your Life, Your Terms report. This is Tom's weekly newsletter where he and Nick share real stories, experiences, and powerful insights to help you live life on your terms. Each week, Tom breaks down the economy, real estate, macro trends, and Bitcoin, and gives you actionable steps to make these insights work for you. No fluff, no vague predictions, just a clear path to thriving no matter what's going on in the world. Tens of thousands of Canadians are already getting the real information they need to level up their lives every week. I can honestly say it's the only newsletter that I've stayed subscribed to for years. It delivers real value that keeps me coming back for more. Join us and start getting the insights and tools to create the life you want, plus entertaining and inspiring stories from Tom and Nick along the way. Sign up for free at rockstarinnercircle.com/get-started and start living life on your terms. That's rockstarinnercircle.com/get-started. Your first step to living life on your terms.
That's a good question. They were looking at like different average buy-in prices, and we're migrating over the DCA platform at the moment. So DCA will be available on the new platform really soon. So it'll be a DCA on-chain, DCA Lightning, or DCA Liquid. And before we kind of migrated this new DCA, we just wanted to take a look at, hey, like what's the average transaction on a DCA? Because we can see the transactions on a DCA. And find out, okay, historically, they were at those prices. How did it work out? And I think we've been looking at some of our own transactions. For example, I had a lump sum and I wanted to be able to like purchase it, but the price was obviously moving on the hourly. So I just did an hourly DCA, right? Instead of like, for example, $10,000, I was watching the price thinking, when do I hit buy? When do I hit buy? And I was like, this is stupid. I'm going to set up like $1,000 every hour to be able to buy throughout the day. So by the end of the day, I DCA'd on a daily. And by the close of business, there isn't a close of business in Bitcoin, but I set it up to run throughout my day. So by the end of the day, I could just see that everything had been purchased throughout that daily volatility as well. So it doesn't have to be a monthly. It can be like an hourly DCA as well. So that's kind of like an interesting feature.
Okay, so that's a new feature, because before the new platform, you guys had a $200 minimum daily spend, right? So it's pretty hard to DCA unless you got a big pocketbook and you can afford to do $200 a day.
I mean, like that type of hourly DCA, we still do have a limit of how much Bitcoin can be purchased on chain. And the reason is because we pay the fee to send it to you. And also we don't want you having loads of these UTXOs stuck on a wallet that in the future, one of the dangers is if it's too low, if the amount of Bitcoin that you have on one of these UTXOs is lower than the fee that you'll have to pay to move it, it becomes unspendable. Like, for example, say I had $10 in Bitcoin and it costs me $11 to send it. Well, I'm going to lose $1 just for sending it, so it becomes stranded. So that's kind of why we put one of the thresholds in place. And I believe at the moment the threshold is denominated in Satoshis. But you just punch in the Canadian dollar amount and it'll suggest to you the network that you'll use. So for anybody listening to this who hasn't yet mastered the Lightning network or the Liquid network, you should be looking at getting a wallet that can support one of those. So we have the Bull Bitcoin wallet is now on Android and soon to be on iOS. Until then, there are other Lightning wallets that will be able to help you stack small amounts. So yeah, but it's been built in. So if you see Liquid or Lightning being populated on the website, it's because we're recommending that for that amount, you transact over the Lightning network or Liquid.
Okay. So can you buy $10 worth of Bitcoin now? It's got to be over the Lightning or Liquid network instead of on chain.
Exactly. Yeah, you can buy like fractions of like very small amounts, small change. I think I bought like I buy $1 the other day. Like you can get into really small amounts because on Lightning the fees are so low. Yeah.
So if I want to do my kind of regular every few weeks, $200, $300 buys, then I can just upload or send that over and then set up a daily DCA for like $10 a day or something now.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be coming really soon. We're talking about migrating that over in the next few days. So yeah, for people who have money left over at the end of the month and want to maybe stack every day, you'll be able to fund your account. Or you can have like a recurring funding as well, right? You could have like every month transfer X amount via Interac over to Bull Bitcoin, and then the DCL just keep running in the background. So it's kind of like a set and forget kind of option that you could have there. You could just fund your account and then DCA from that amount. If ever,
and you set that up through Bull or through your bank?
Yeah, you'd have to set it up on both sides because we can't pull the money from your bank account. You'll have to set it up on the bank side that you push the money out of your bank account on a regular. It can be on a weekly or a monthly to keep your account funded. And then on the Bull Bitcoin side, you set up the DCA where the purchase of Bitcoin is being carried out on whatever kind of frequency you want. And that'll work until there's a mismatch. If your account is at 0 at Bull Bitcoin and you have a DCA, the DCA will stop. We're not gonna, it's not gonna go negative. So if you're buying like like a $10 on a daily, and you have like $9 in your account, the DCA will stop, and then you'll have to check back in and refund it and set that back up again.
Would this have to be a pre-authorized debit agreement, or can you just use e-transfer?
You can use e-transfer on a regular. I think you can just
you can set up auto e-transfers.
You can set up auto e-transfers. Yeah.
Oh,
that's how I pay like other stuff as well. Yeah. I like have like a recurring donation, and rent and things like that can just go out as recurring payments. Yeah.
As an e-transfer. Oh wow, I had no idea. Makes total sense.
Because the contact details that you'll see when you go into like fund my account, they'll stay the same from month to month. So you just send to the same details.
Okay, cool. So you had a feature called the auto buy or auto sell functionality. Is that kind of what we're talking about here, or is that something else?
They'll be coming in. In fact, we're working on things like limit orders will be coming in as well. So you can actually target the price you want. And the auto buy would be like auto buy would basically be like when money arrives on your Bull Bitcoin account, it'll automatically purchase. So you won't even have to log into Bull Bitcoin to buy Bitcoin. You'll be able to just like fire across some fiat into your Bull Bitcoin account. When money lands on that account, if you've set it up, it'll buy Bitcoin and send it out to the address that you've already set up as well. So in the future, you're just going to be able to push out some fiat and receive some Bitcoin without even logging into bitcoin.com, bullbitcoin.com.
Wow. So you could set up that auto e-transfer each month. It's going to push the fiat in on your chosen date and time, and then it'll automatically buy it, send it to your wallet. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. It's going to be wild. It's going to be like we're just trying to rework the entire process of making it as smooth as possible and removing as many steps as possible, because people want to just be able to get the transaction done quickly. And with Bitcoin, there's checking that you have to do. Once you've funded your account, you got to pull up your wallet, you got to find the address, double check the address and send it through. So if there's any part of that process that we can make easier, which is like the auto buy, you've set up an address, it's worked once, so it'll work again and again. You can do that type of thing as well. So yeah, we're just trying to remove all of the kind of hang-ups, so like the logins and eventually it'll just be like a super smooth process to be able to send fiat and just receive Bitcoin.
And how does the auto sell feature work then?
Auto sell, we haven't had auto sell. I haven't checked it out yet, but auto sell will be like essentially you'll set up a beneficiary and you'll have an address. So when you send Bitcoin to that address, we'll know it's associated with your account. We'll be able to switch it into Canadian dollars and then send it out to your beneficiary that you've decided. So you'll just be able to push it out of your Bull Bitcoin wallet or whichever wallet you use. You won't have to log into bullbitcoin.com, and the person on the other side will just receive fiat. So again, the touch points on the auto buy and auto sell mean that you don't have to log into the platform once it's been set up. You're just basically making Bitcoin transactions or fiat transactions and receiving the other side of the transaction.
Okay. So I don't think we've covered this yet, but you kind of just mentioned it. Like I can sell Bitcoin and have it send to somebody else as an e-transfer, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You can send it anyway. So for example, I pay my rent via Interac. I send it over to the landlord of the property, but I can sell Bitcoin into Bull Bitcoin, and it sends out to their Interac, so I can pay my rent in Bitcoin. Yep.
Yeah, crazy. It's pretty cool just how it's all fusing together now.
Yeah. There was like lots of different parts to Bull Bitcoin before. There was the buy side, the sell side, the build side. But because we've been able to rebuild the website, everything that was transactional has become much more automated, much smoother, much quicker. So like previously, I think with like Interact and things, because things were manually processed, we weren't running 24/7. So there was like a period in the middle of the night where you'd have seen if you sent us like an Interact at 3 a.m., it would have been around about 7, 8 a.m. that it would have got sent out. But nowadays you can just be able to send that
whenever Kevin woke up.
Thrown through. Exactly. That was it. Yeah. Me and Kev being like, yo, we got to clear the backlog. There was a backlog, right? Because, and especially like when things were happening in Bitcoin, if the price was going up, we'd kind of have to like set the alarm extra early and like clear out stuff. But like usually people were super, super, super chill because like if we compare this to the banking system, if you want to send like large payments, you're talking business days. And, like 3 to 5 business days being a classic kind of banking term for how it's slow it is to move anything. And when we look at like the international payments, like if I was to send any type of Canadian dollar over to Europe, it would take from my native bank here in Canada to a native bank over in France like ages. But Bull Bitcoin is making that bridge. So we're able to speed things way up. So payments are as instant cross-border as they are domestically.
Yeah. I just love thinking about Kevin having to roll out of bed and accept my e-transfer. I almost
you did a great job, man. We were reminiscing about it the other day. Actually, we were like, man, you remember when? Because it was only a few weeks ago, but we're thinking, man, it's really changed how we operate, and it gives us much more time to focus on helping people directly with like troubleshooting. And the chat's like super rapid now. We have like more people behind the chat support, so you're getting like much better support and hand holding and guidance. And we'll even call up clients if it's like more than 1 or 2 exchanges, because just to that reason, we've been freed up with all that transaction load that we had to do manually. Now we can give like, we were giving 5-star. I feel we're giving like 6-star customer service now.
Yeah. And that is, I think, one of the biggest, if not the biggest thing that separates you from other crypto exchanges is the human customer service element that you guys bring to the table. You just don't get that with other crypto exchanges.
No, I used to work for a rival exchange, actually. That's how I got involved in working in Bitcoin. I was working for a crypto exchange. But it was like an international, like any one of the big .coms that you can think of, one of the big box kind of cryptocurrency exchanges. They're international. They're usually small teams. A lot of it is being automated by chatbots or AI or ticketing services. We don't have any of that here at Bull Bitcoin. Basically, as soon as your message pops, the person or the people working will get a notification and reply straight away with no scripted messages, no like, those automated messages where it's like, so what is your inquiry concerning? Is it regarding Bitcoin or Lightning buying? And you have to click, only to get placed in a queue, and then wait and make sure you don't close your phone or shut your laptop down. Otherwise you've lost your place in the queue. Like the way it works is you send a message like, hey Kev, what's up? Hey Philip, hey Pablo, what's up? And we'll be right on the other side replying to you as well. And we also have now French support, and we have Spanish support as well. So for all of these different countries we're operating in, plus the fact that we've spread onto different time zones, we're covering a lot more of the 24-hour clock as well. We're nearly 24/7. But basically when the French guys wake up, they'll be clearing out from way early before even the Canadians have woken up. And then by the time the West Coast is going back to bed, well, France is pretty much online nearly again anyway. So that kind of like geo dispersion that we have is really helping out our service too.
Oh, wow. Why did Francis or Bull Bitcoin stay away from all the other cryptocurrencies while every other exchange kind of adopted every new coin that came out? Like, maybe it's a silly question knowing Francis, right? But like, why did he stay away from it? Why have you guys stayed away from it for somebody that might not know?
Yeah. So there's 2 reasons to that. First of all, the properties of Bitcoin are unique when compared to any other type of cryptocurrency. We believe in sound money, and we want to destroy fiat. We believe that the money system that exists currently, which is the Canadian dollar, the US dollar, the euro, they're systems which don't give us freedom. They're systems which are diminishing our quality of life. Our purchasing power has been shrunken. And the only real headshot to this current fiat system is Bitcoin. There is no other way that you can achieve that mission using any of the other cryptocurrencies because of the way that Bitcoin was designed and it's been distributed and the way that it exists right now. It's such a large computer network that it's on that we should build. You know, if you want to build your house, you got to build it on rock, not sand. So if we're building the next future of finance, we need to be able to build it on the rock that is Bitcoin. So that's to the properties of Bitcoin. As to the other models and the other cryptocurrencies, having worked in another cryptocurrency exchange and dug into hey, why do we offer like 8,000 coins? Why are we like picking up a coin that was made yesterday and like selling it? Like, what is this mission? What is the values? What's the reason why we offer so much? And a lot of people will kind of hide behind this idea of free market decides, which, you know, as a capitalist makes total sense. You let the people decide what they want. However, when you dig a little bit further into the reasons, the actual reasons, not the value signal reasons why people believe, why these exchanges offer so many different cryptocurrencies, is because of the fees. All they want are your fees. They don't believe in the projects. They don't believe that it's going to replace Bitcoin. They don't believe it's going to change much. All they want to do is, off of the hype cycle of these cryptocurrencies, they want to be able to take their little spreads, because you'll go to them and you'll trade with them and you'll move from one coin to the other, to the other, to the other. And every time you do that, they're making a percentage. Our goal here at Bull Bitcoin is eventually that you'll no longer need us, because we'll be operating on a Bitcoin standard, right? You'll be able to just buy and sell products, goods, services in Bitcoin, earn in Bitcoin, save in Bitcoin, and exchange with other people. Until we get there, we need exchanges to be able to sit in the middle with liquidity, right? So we're very happy to fulfill that function, but our end goal is that we change money. Our end goal isn't we're going to make as much capital as possible. We're going to be able to list ourselves on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, and we're going to do a Silicon Valley style startup, become a .com, become like a big success, which behind the scenes is what a lot of the big cryptocurrency exchanges want to do. They just want to be listed, and then every single one of their founders, and they get a share in equity, and eventually they're able to cash out and become super mega rich because they pumped up a company based on the fees. And it's very much like a big model, and they're basing themselves on a startup model and a Silicon Valley model. They want to follow the Facebook, the Amazon, the Google kind of path, where eventually they just become one of these huge mega corporations. Fundamentally, that's not the game that we're playing here. Our game is to make lasting change in the money that we use. And to list yourselves on a stock exchange, which is denominated in dollars, and then work around a share price, is something that's against the mission and the vision of Bitcoin in general. So that's kind of what I found. Also, one of the things that protects us from this type of approach is that we don't have any VC money. All of these other crypto exchanges are pretty much backed by huge angel investors who have large shares in equity in the company. And they are the people who are guiding the CEO and founders. So even though a lot of the CEOs and founders are very much OGs in Bitcoin, they've been there for a long, long time, longer than myself, and they've been very influential in the evolution of Bitcoin. Nowadays, because their attention is divided between making Bitcoin a standard currency and having monetary change, but also how's financing going? Do we have enough runway? What are the VCs after? Do we need new products? And what that results in is more and more dilution of products. Like the NFT thing was supported by so many different exchanges. And there's been no apology about the fact that we offered these, to be honest, dog shit products that are worth nothing. Absolutely nothing nowadays. There's not an inkling of like, yeah, we were wrong about that. They sold them, they took the fees, you got the NFTs, and now they're worth nothing. And then they're slowly pulling them from their exchanges, so you can't even sell them back to them. It's really hypocritical the way that a lot of them are. They put out this like Bitcoin cryptocurrency is going to change the world, but behind the scenes, they're just operating like a regular Silicon Valley company, or even a bank, to be honest. The behavior is very similar to how banks operate.
Yeah, very fiat behavior, right?
Yep. Yeah, and it's short-term based as well. Like, also another one of the biggest problems. I'm wailing on these guys now. Another one of the problems is they're like,
it's actually quite like sad to hear once you hear it broken out.
When you put it all together, when you look at the facts that they only want fees, and you look at the VC money behind it, and then you also look at the custody aspect of it, that's super dangerous. That's where it gets me really kind of like worried. Like Coinbase owning or holding so much Bitcoin, they're holding like all of Strategy's Bitcoin, they're holding like everybody's Bitcoin, it's such a honeypot, right? You know, not only do they sell these products they don't believe in, not only are they actually, paying service to VCs, but they're also encouraging you to leave your hardest assets, or the weakest ones if you're into the meme coins, but whatever. They want you to keep those coins on their platform. So what happens when they go to zero? What happens if they got hacked? What happens if they deny you access to your funds? I don't know. I jump on some of the support groups to all of the big exchanges. They have like Telegrams and Discords, and I'm still a member of all of them because I just look into like some of the people who are like just raging on the exchange, and they're like, I can't believe this exchange, like they're not giving me access to my funds, like they're asking for this, they're asking for that, and that's. A lot of them will do overregulation as well because they want to get listed eventually on the stock market. So they're actually asking for way more information than they should do, and they're legally required to do. They're overreaching, and they're playing boss with your funds as well. So the custody aspect is all out of whack as well with what Bitcoin should be. So there's not a lot of things that they do which reflect the values of what Bitcoin stands for. Like they offer a service. They offer you sound money through Bitcoin, but everything else that they do seems to be hypocritical or contradictory, or worse than that, a bit of a scam, to be honest. And that's not to really like dig on the founders and the people who set these things up. Like if you look at the big exchanges, the context in which they were created, these guys were visionaries, right? They could see the potential of Bitcoin as the leading cryptocurrency, and they all set up as Bitcoin exchanges. But nowadays they've just been so diluted into things that are these ecosystems of so many different tokens, NFTs, meme coins, and fees and yields, and they've basically diversified like banks. Here, what we want to do at Bull Bitcoin is stay very true to the mission, which is we're self-custody and we're Bitcoin only, and we want to destroy fiat. It's really simple, but also it doesn't make it as easy as possible. We'd love to be able to offer all of these different cryptocurrencies and be able to like pump our own back, but at the end of the day, we're not being integral to our core values. So it is a limiting factor for us. Like there's a reason why we're not like across the globe with like 2,000 employees. But at the same time, I'm super happy about that as a guy who left that type of environment to be able to be working with key guys that that we know, that the audience knows, showing up to meetups, doing the hard work, and just making sure it's done the right way. Because you sleep sound at night, you take your paycheck, you stack it in Bitcoin, you're like, I'm earning good, hard money here, and I'm earning it the right way. So, the integrity behind working in Bitcoin education is something I left education because it didn't reflect my values. I couldn't work in Bitcoin if it also didn't reflect my values. So working here at Bull is like totally aligned with the value proposition of what Bitcoin should be. I don't feel we ever compromise on that image of Bitcoin and what we can deliver through Bitcoin by working here at Bull Bitcoin. It's as simple as that. That's my rant. That was a rant. Sorry about that.
That was great. This is why we like you guys, man. It's values focused. It's mission focused. And it's like personal relationships at this point. We know you guys, we trust you guys, and we know that you guys have integrity. And honestly, I think that integrity actually serves you better in the long run. In the short term, you might be leaving all these short-term profits that you could be getting from selling all these coins. But in the long run, that integrity compounds and builds, and natural referrals happen, and you begin to build trust with other people that have integrity. And at the end of the day, that trust is everything, because business is just all about relationships. And so it's an entirely trust-based thing. And I think it's good karma, and what you put out eventually comes back in. And if you're out there to scam your customers, and like your analogy of like, it's almost like a grocery store, and you sell 8,000 different products, and one product is good and healthy and nutritious and quality sourced, but the other 7,999 products are poison or crap, terrible for you. And it's like, well, it's the free market, you're going to find the good product. Well, it's like, no, I'm just going to go to the grocery store that protects me from all the other poisonous products, and I'm just going to buy the one good product that they offer. And it's simple and it's easy, and I'm not going to buy all this other crap. But like, I'm putting a degree of trust in you as the seller to sell me something that's good. And when you sign up for these other exchanges and you're new to cryptocurrency, and you see Bitcoin's $100,000 and you feel like you're late to it, and you see XRP or Ethereum or whatever dog wolf coin is at $3 or 2 cents for a new coin, and you're like, well, I missed out on Bitcoin, I want to get into the next thing. It's like so many people have been wiped out. And then when it comes to the yield products, it's like I know so many people that have been wiped out with those because you were trying to get interest and because it seemed like a safe thing, when behind the scenes they're doing all sorts of sketchy things, right? So it's like it takes a while to sort through the noise, unfortunately, and it's why Bitcoin has such a bad reputation, because of the shitty crypto ecosystem that's been built up around it. So I don't know. I just really value the guys that stay focused on the one thing that's good and should be, pushed out into the world, which is what you guys are doing.
Yeah. And it works both ways as well, right? Because behind Francis, this platform called Bull Bitcoin has been set up. But then because of the stands we take, like it's mirrored on who our clients are. Like we have the most amazing clients. Like we have people from all walks of life coming to us, but they have like very core values. They're very like self-affirmed. They've worked some stuff out in other parts of their lives. And so interacting at any type of event we'll go to, with people come up to us like, hey, yeah, I use it. Like people come out of everywhere. I use Bull Bitcoin. Like, and you just sit down and listen to who they are and where they're from and what they got to say. Like we got really strong people using, and it's because it's a reflection of what we stood for and what we've built. But it comes back in swathes. Like I enjoy so much like participating in everything we do, putting on the Bull Bitcoin t-shirt and heading out, because it just attracts these amazing people being like, oh, but I was in the United States like a while ago, just doing like a meetup of meetups, helping like brainstorm with other guys who hold meetups. I went to the USA and so many people are, when USA, when are you guys showing up in the USA? Bull Bitcoin, you guys are awesome. Tell Francis I say, hey, Mate X, like I love his stuff. And it's like our reputation is the result of hard decisions being taken in the past. And the reputation in Bitcoin is something that takes years to build, but a bad week to lose. Like, FTX was like, I remember when I was working customer service during the FTX week. It was my first week on the phone for my previous exchange. And I just remember being like, Sam Bankman-Fried, he's doing all this arbitrage trading. Like, look at this guy. He has like 7 computer screens. Like he's a genius. He's worked something out. And then in a week, it just fell to pieces. So, it takes so long to be able to cut your teeth in the Bitcoin industry and be known as a reputable, reliable, and truthful source. And I'm super happy to be able to stand on this platform and be able to say the same things that have been said for years and years, because we've been around for a long time now. So, the company's seen a lot of people come and go, and we've kind of worked out that this is a long-term game. It's something that might even last longer than our lifetimes. Like our mission is to destroy fiat, and this could take, I've realized this, this could take like longer than a lifetime here, what we're trying to do. But as long as we're just pushing the ball forward a yard at a time, it's better than the Hail Mary that goes haywire. So we're building the right tools that empower our users to be able to take these steps with us as well. So we're super happy Rockstar joined us on this mission. And it's a wild one. It's definitely a wild ride. And it's something I'm super happy to have discovered. Like anything could have happened. I could have like living in Canada, was being from out overseas. It was just a perfect like coincidence of situations, being at the meetups, helping out in Montreal, post-COVID, leaving education. Like my pathway into this has been really, really fortunate, and I couldn't think of a better place to be in terms of Bitcoin and helping adoption. It's great. We can do these things. I feel really like empowered by having access to Bull Bitcoin's resources, and so too should our users and our clients, because they're tools at your disposition, and you should be using them.
Well, totally. That's why I wanted to do this podcast. It's because I see all the services you're rolling out, and I'm like, oh my God, like it's not just buying and selling Bitcoin anymore. Like there's an entire financial services industry that's rolling out. And a lot of it was scammy and scummy, and things like FTX with these yield products or loans. But if like they crash and you lose all your Bitcoin, was it really a good thing? It's like, no. And it's important to see companies with integrity starting to build more and more of these products and services, because it adds to the experience that I can now have with my Bitcoin. And it adds more tools to my toolbox on what I can do with my life and with my sovereignty and achieve more freedom. So I think it's just important to share all the new stuff that you guys are doing.
Yeah. No, we're always very happy to be able to bring new tools. Essentially, that's how we see them. They're not just products and services. They're tools that will increase your freedom and your sovereignty. And Francis has always like lent hard with Madex on we're engineering sovereignty is like definitely one of our approaches to how we go about destroying fiat is we want to engineer your sovereignty for you. And, money being the first thing that can empower you in our society. So why not start there?
So you guys build a lot of stuff behind the scenes, like Bitcoin development. So like, what are you guys building? How do you guys do it? What's actually going on behind the scenes there?
Yeah, I work on like the events community side of things, but every time I connect with the developers, they're just working on nuts amount of things, crazy hours. And essentially a lot of our stack contributes back into the ecosystem. So for example, when we were building our wallet, we were looking at, hey, how can people have custody over instant payments? Because you've got on-chain, you can get any one of the on-chain wallets and they're super solid and a lot of them are open source and Bitcoin only and everything we wanted. But then there were the Lightning wallets and it was either super complex to have your self-custodied Lightning wallet. You had to manage channels, liquidity, you had to be running a node. And it took like a specialist to be able to master all of those aspects of Lightning to use those types of wallets. So we developed the Bull Bitcoin wallet, which is using swaps and it'll swap in and out of Liquid. So if you lose your cell phone, you can use your 12-word recovery phrase to be able to recover your on-chain, like a regular on-chain wallet, but also recover your Liquid balance as well. So this will enable you to buy your cup of coffee, like you were saying earlier, but also stack like large amounts and then move off onto cold storage later. But one of the problems, as far as I can, I'm not a dev guy, right? But as far as I could understand, the swaps in and out of Lightning to Liquid using bolts was becoming an obstacle and it needed migrating over into Flutter, I believe. So Francis and the team were working on this and were like, hey, if we want to deliver this killer wallet app, we've got to be able to like take up this service with bolts and help them migrate over to Flutter, I believe.
What the hell is Flutter?
It's like a language, right? This is where I start sounding like an idiot that doesn't know what he's talking about because I don't do dev stuff, right? I'm not a computer programmer. But essentially, we just deployed a load of resources to find a solution to something that was existing in the Bitcoin ecosystem in general. And that was our contribution. Another idea like that Francis had a while ago, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but the current discussion, debate, whatever you want to call it, Fallout TIFF with OpReturn. There's a lot of Bitcoin Core developers who are proposing changes to Bitcoin's core. And then there's also Bitcoin Knots, which is a rival alternative platform that you can run on your node. We contributed to Bitcoin Knots, I think it was like 0.86 Bitcoin a while ago to fund that type of project. So we do things internally to be able to contribute open source back out to the community. When we hit an obstacle, we work through it and then we'll publish what we've done. But also if there are cool side projects or things that we're using like mempool.space, here's another great example. It's basically a public mempool that you can use to be able to look into your transactions when they're pending, when they're confirmed, how much fees are. We contribute to that as well. So anything we use, we're always in partnership with. So the great part of this decentralized network is that there are so many different organizations, developers, programmers, companies who are all trying to make sure everything works. And we're building together. And anytime there's kind of some opportunity for collaboration, Bull Bitcoin will be like, hey, that's a problem for us as well. Let's work on it. And let's make sure we can improve things. So the developers are building like crazy. It seems like a kind of crazy mad scientist laboratory. And I just open the door from time to time. Like, you guys okay in there? And they're like, yeah, we're trying to push this thing out. We're experimenting with this thing. And then as soon as it's kind of made public, well, it's open source, right? So the Bull Bitcoin wallet is open source. We contributed back into the libraries and there's just lots of things that we do like that, like the fee multiple. That was something that was built internally. We were curious about how fees were looking on a 30-day average, on a 365-day average. And you can go over to feemultiple.bullbitcoin.com and you can use that as well because it was a tool we were using and we just decided to publish it. So we're very lean and agile. No VC money, small team. That's a downside if you want to be like on CNN and like, at the White House or whatever. We don't get that type of presence mainstream, but it also makes us super agile. We can really look into what needs to get done and move quickly to make sure it is done, so we can contribute not just to Bull Bitcoin, not just to Bitcoin in Canada, but like Bitcoin, the ecosystem as well. So these guys amaze me all the time. We have like developers across the world working super hard on everything we do. We integrated PayJoin recently into the wallet, and it's going to be integrated into the app as well. Into the exchange as well. So there's all these different tools that are coming out.
Yeah. Okay. One sec. I want to ask you about PayJoin, but just on your comments about, creating things and then making them open source, releasing them to the rest of the ecosystem. Is that like what the rest of the Bitcoin ecosystem is like as well? Like, is everybody kind of doing that who's working in Bitcoin companies like Blockstream or CoinKite? Like, or is there some degree of people are kind of a bit secretive with their technology because that's their competitive advantage? Just curious how it works.
Yeah. I mean, there are always some aspects that are kept, like for security, for example, CoinKite, there are some things that they don't open source because that would essentially compromise a hardware device. Blockstream, for example, they open source a lot of their things, but for example, on the Liquid network, finding out who are the gatekeepers on the Liquid network is something that they keep secret as well. Anytime it would involve compromising security or making somebody vulnerable, then things are usually kept under lock and key and kept as confidential as possible. But if it's something that's a tool that can enable Bitcoin to succeed, the idea is that Bitcoiners should be contributing whatever they're doing to the greater good of this is my contribution into Bitcoin. So listing things on GitHub, you just have to be able to look. Usually when you're downloading an app, you can just look, is it listed on GitHub? You can click into that. Again, as somebody who isn't a developer, I'm more and more looking into GitHub and looking into the repositories and finding out, is it available? How much can I find out about this wallet? If I'm using Blue Wallet or Sparrow Wallet or whatever it may be, can I, even though I don't understand what I'm looking at, can I at least look at the source code for this app? And if you can, then it's like really, really empowering as well, because you feel like, hey, like I can't verify this, but I know that other people have verified this for me because they have the same access as me as well. So it just builds up more security and it builds up more reliability in all the different tools we're using. So yeah, there's always like a mix of what is shared and what isn't shared. We're not a totally open source everything company because we have to respect privacy as well. So there's always, but as soon as it's a tool that would be useful, that doesn't compromise on security or privacy, then it's shared.
And I guess it's a positive sum game with Bitcoin, right? Like the more the ecosystem grows overall, the more your wealth is going to grow because you hold Bitcoin, and because you're a Bitcoin company, the more you're going to benefit from the overall, let's say, pool growing that you're waiting on, right? Yeah, like totally. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly. That's the way we see it. There is some philanthropic kind of like a legacy kind of movement of like, we want to build something together, right? We're talking about an entire new paradigm shift in the way that we use money. And it's not going to be done like competition. At the same time, we were talking about other exchanges and things earlier. Competition is super, super, super healthy as well. We don't want to like, we don't want to be in some mudslinging match, like just because, we have to stand on our values for sure. But at the same time, the fact that so many other people are trying to deliver on the same mission as us is super, super encouraging as well. So it just makes sure that things are moving forward, because we couldn't do everything alone. It takes everybody to be able to make contributions, make moves, whether it be in, developing, whether it be in media, whether it be in education. There's so many things that people can do with Bitcoin and in Bitcoin. And I didn't think what I do right now would be possible like 5 years ago, being in education and meetups and doing all this community management. It was very much like an underground, 7 years ago, very much like a technical industry, but it's broadening out. You see so many different projects that are being launched. It's becoming more and more of an open ecosystem that people can join into. So whatever you're doing, eventually your time will come that you'll be able to do what you do with Bitcoin. So for me, it was teaching. But if you're listening to this and whatever you may do in life, Bitcoin is coming to you, and it's growing as an ecosystem. So the sooner you can learn it, the better.
What if you're like a mechanic?
Mechanic? I think like mechanics in general, it depends like what type of mechanic you are, but like with mining, for example, is a huge industry. If you're like an electrical engineer, you have like some guys that I know are Bitcoiners, but they're electricians at the same time. And just the way they explain mining and the way they see it, and the power grid, and like fluctuation, and like solar, to like, oh yeah, if you've got solar panels, your miner is going to need converting for. I'm like, okay, you totally lost me on that. I know Bitcoin mining, but you know electricity. So they're like immediately experts in that. In terms of mechanics, they have like a certain way of thinking about like structures and machinery. There is a guy called Bitcoin Mechanic at the moment on Twitter who's
okay, so they already got to the mechanics.
Yeah, who's because they have this way of understanding how machines and efficiencies and how things work from a design point of view. That's super useful. Those like because the developers are very much like, they have a certain focus, but also like mechanics would have a focus, and also in terms of, it goes larger than Bitcoin, right? When you understand this, right? As soon as you start learning about Bitcoin, you start learning about like technological obsolescence. Where does that come from? So like you talk to a mechanic, I talk to my mechanic about like how expensive it is to change parts on a car nowadays, and how like a car from 10 years ago would last longer than a car from 5 years ago, and what's happened with that, and where does that come from, and supply chain, and all of these things that are all related to money as well. So like my mechanic gets Bitcoin without actually having talked about Bitcoin. We're talking about all these subjects that you learn why, but essentially these are things that other people in walks of life are already experiencing. So the problem's there, and the solution being Bitcoin is just to bridge that gap. But everybody kind of feels that little pain somewhere, because money permeates everything, right? Money permeates whatever you're doing in life. There'll be some monetary aspect to it. So when the money's broken, you start to see the issues of broken money, and it just takes a Bitcoiner to highlight like, yo, it doesn't have to be like this. I'm like, oh, okay. And then once you can kind of pivot that kind of like problem focus to a solution focus kind of approach, then these people can really excel at what they do, because you've fixed like an underlying inefficiency with what they do. And then after that, they can go away and excel. It's super empowering that way. So I think there's space for everybody. Bitcoin is for everyone essentially. And I think it's growing and growing. So there's more and more space available, more seats at the table. That's what I find super encouraging. It's not just some tech finance specialist thing, because of people working super hard to be able to build tools that are easier and easier to use. It's lowering the threshold of welcoming people in. Yeah, there's obviously some basics people still need to learn. But eventually, in the terms of adoption, it's like any type of technology, you know, combustion engine. Personally, I don't know how one works, but I drive a car. Credit cards. I don't know what happens at Visa or MasterCard, but I use my Visa card. I've got a router here, and like I was trying to do my own home network, and I ruined it, and like I was offline for 2 days. I don't know exactly how my router works. Like I learned, but I was using Wi-Fi for years and years and years. So Bitcoin will be like that eventually. That I think you're in a really strong position if you know how it works as you start to learn to use it. But eventually, in the next few years, you're not going to even need to know how it works. You're just going to be using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the incentive right there is right now is to figure out how it works, because you're storing your life's value in it. Like you're doing one of the most important acts you can as a human, which is trying to save money for the future, because that's literally like stored up life force that you've generated that you now need to store somewhere. So it's like investors become some of the most studious people on the planet, because they've got real skin in the game with their past life force that they've saved up, and with the future potential of that life force that they don't want to see dwindle away. So it's like, I've found investors are some of the most informed people I know on whatever it is they're investing in, because you actually start paying attention, and you're paying attention to the news and the technology and the history and the culture of it, because you want to understand, can my value be protected there? And so like ever since discovering Bitcoin and using it as a savings technology, oh my God, like I've learned so much, and I'm like insatiably curious about every aspect of it, because I have a significant chunk of my net worth now in this network. And I want to ensure that it's going to be protected and continue to grow over time, you know?
From an investor point of view, I have like the most interesting discussions with people who have like a good approach and good background. Hey, what's up?
What's up, man?
Yeah, all good. Getting deep into stuff. What's up?
Podcast?
Hey? Podcast.
Podcast? Oh, hey, everyone. I'm just interrupting the podcast. I'm being rude. I just thought I'd do that.
What do you think?
Here, so I'm going to leave.
Okay.
Good to see you, bud. Nick just showing up. Little cameo from Nick.
Little cameo, yeah.
But what was I saying? Yeah, I have like some of the most interesting conversations with investors because we can get so close. It's almost like horseshoe theory, right? We're like opposite ends of the same discussion usually. Because, you know, they'll be very much like, yeah, bonds and stocks and investment, like traditional TradFi, traditional investment vehicles. But we'll be able to talk the same language, but my solution is different to their solution. And one of the main reasons is an investor traditionally is measuring in a unit that I don't measure in. They're measuring in the dollar.
Yeah.
And that's where the argument can get undone because they're very much an investor is always much like bottom line is the dollar. You know, if I'm holding this asset or that asset, I always want to be measuring it in dollars, but the Bitcoin standard isn't just like, hey, everybody lives on Bitcoin. I don't know, actually. Like, this is how I see it. I think the word Bitcoin standard is two things. It's like it's a standard in terms of like that's what people expect and that's what we use, but also a standard in like a standardization of measurement, like dividing everything by 21 million. So when you start looking at things like, you know, like real estate is like a classic example. You always see these memes online about like how much average house is worth in dollars versus how much that average house is worth in Bitcoin. So that change in measurement unit really changes your perspective. And a lot of investors are stuck with that dollar-based mindset. And to get them out of that takes like an even more open-minded investor who's willing to explore new territory. Because it is an exit of fiat, and it's at the moment Bitcoin is still an opt-out. But if an investor doesn't realize that, you know, they'll realize that inflation and devaluation of the dollar, but they don't see to the fact that a total opt-out of the dollar and measuring things in a whole new unit of account, such as Bitcoin, is a total paradigm shift in every single other investment they may own. So it really flips things right upside down. And it takes a while to get into that because people usually get into Bitcoin because the number goes up. Yes. But the number is in dollars. But when you stop thinking about that number going up and being like, no, my number is now Bitcoin, that's when things get really, really fun in terms of the process. But
it's like numbers stay the same with Bitcoin, but everything else go down.
Yeah. I met somebody, I'm yet to find it, but I met somebody who has like this extension on their browser, their web browser. And basically what it does is if they jump onto Amazon.com or whatever, or any type of like online e-commerce store, all of the dollar amounts are instantly converted into sats, into Satoshis. So when they're doing online shopping, they actually see the price in Satoshis. Like it'll take everything and do the instant conversions. And Buddy like jumps onto online shopping. He's like, yo, this is way cheaper than it was yesterday. Shall I buy it? He's like, heck no, because it's going to be way cheaper tomorrow. And then tomorrow he logs in and he's like, yo, it's like going to be cheaper tomorrow. So he's like not buying stuff, which is a super good point to like all of this, like, yo, Bitcoin's not good for the economy and everything. Essentially, we spend our money because our dollar's losing value. When you start measuring in Bitcoin, you realize that you don't need a lot of the stuff you buy. You can consume a lot less. It's making saving possible again, but that flip into a new unit of account is a big one. You need to have some Bitcoin to start off with. There's always like a progression of learning. But once you start measuring things in Bitcoin is when everything really starts falling into place in a big way. And that's what I think the Bitcoin standard is. It's when we start to standardize our unit of measurement behind Bitcoin, dividing by 21 million.
Yeah, I like that kind of language phrasing with the standard. I've never thought of it like that, or even just standard measurement of value, which it is.
Because measurements are standardized usually, right? If you're using something as a measurement, like an inch is an inch. You know, It didn't used to be, right? It used to be like this amount of I think it was Henry I in England was the first king to be like, yo, my thumb is an inch, right? This bit of my thumb is the new inch. But then when he died, like, I think he got replaced. I'm not very good I should be better at this as a Brit, like knowing my monarchy. But then after that, I think he got replaced by like a 14-year-old. So like the 14-year-old was like Edward the whatever. He was like, yo, an inch has just changed again. And that was what imperial measurements were. Like inches and feet were actually like the thumbs and the feet of the monarchs. So every time there was a change in monarch, like the actual measurement would change. And eventually they had to standardize the imperial system. So that kind of abstract, you know, as a metric kind of guy, that's what I learned in school. Sorry, construction guys who hate me for this, but they had to eventually standardize that really weird measurement because it was fluctuating all the time in like centimeters, kilometers, miles. Everything that we measure in has been standardized. But if we're measuring in a dollar, it's the only unit of measurement that hasn't been standardized yet because they're just inflating it. So you can never really work out the value of things. It's actually crazy measuring things in dollars. It makes no sense. No. But yet we do it. And it's pretty much as I said, like money infiltrates everything we do. So if we're measuring on a broken unit of account, but that money is affecting every aspect of our lives, well, every aspect of our life is being measured in some way. And this is where things get super interesting. Because you can realign behind something that's like actually concrete and mathematically based and not being at the behest of unelected officials hitting a print button.
Yeah. It's all very true. Sometimes I think about how Bitcoin isn't even fully standardized yet because it is still inflating in supply. But by 2034, I believe, we've mined 99% of the Bitcoin, and it's a 1% inflation rate for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's pretty much a standard then because the inflation rate is so low, and you're going to get some people losing coins. So there's always going to be a bit of deflationary push down, but like it's as good of a standard of measurement as we're ever going to get as a species.
Yeah. And even if not all the Bitcoin is in circulation now, you can work out that it will be 21 million in the future. So it's not like, I think I actually got this from you guys. I got it from, I think it was Tom was doing this. Like if you divide the amount of Bitcoin you buy by 21 million, you actually get a percentage share in the total supply.
Yeah.
So you've actually got like a stake in the claim, right? It's like beachfront properties. You can't create more beachfront properties unless you do like reclaimed sand like they do in Dubai. But you get my point, right? If I buy $10 of Bitcoin, I'll do the division by 21 million and I'll find out my percentage share of the total supply cap.
Yes.
And that's it. That's not going to change whether it be in 2 months or 20 months or 20 years. It'll still be the same percentage share of the total. So it's not being diluted away, even though there is like supply being dripped into the system and more in circulation. The basis is a fixed supply anyway. So it's necessary to propagate the system. And that's what encourages the system to grow, is the fact that there are new Bitcoin being eked into circulation every 10 minutes. That's why it's growing. And it's necessary, but eventually it'll just be so total that it won't need to expand anymore because it's taken up all the space in the room. It'll be, we were talking about like investors and how they're measuring in dollars. Eventually the Bitcoin will be like the fish in the aquarium and the water is the Bitcoin. It'll just be all around us and we'll just be like, we'll be thinking about other things. It won't be something we'll question in the future, but right about now it is. But that's going to change. I'm not sure, again, coming back to like when. Again, this might be more than a lifetime. This might be something that my children think about, but like most Bitcoiners haven't been born yet. So I'm quite happy to be able to seed a bit of legacy so we can move past this kind of false broken money as a unit of measurement thing.
Yeah, it is difficult right now to measure in Bitcoin, and it's easiest with big purchases like a home or a car because you'll take a minute and think about it, but it's the taking a think about it, which is difficult because you still need fiat to do the kind of conversion to Bitcoin. Like if you want to measure a house, the house is going up in dollars, it's going down in Bitcoin terms. But like if you want to measure how much Bitcoin it costs to buy that house, you kind of have to convert the Bitcoin price to its current dollar price and then look at the dollar price of that home. So, you know, the home was $1 million a year ago, and now it's $1.2 million. And the Bitcoin was 10 Bitcoin a year ago at $100,000. And then you have to like, you still need that fiat intermediary to kind of do that switch, right? So it is tricky right now, but I think
conversion's going to be there for a long, long time. I think like like I'd be hypocritical to say that I don't look at the price on the US dollar. It's basically like checking the weather systems and the pressure, like how much pressure are we putting on the US dollar is how much is one Bitcoin worth in US dollars. It's kind of like a symbol of, are we winning? And as that number goes up, then it confirms that yes, we are, but it's always a measure of Bitcoin's dominance over the US dollar. And eventually it won't be. But again, when's that going to be? I'm not sure. Like it'll eventually just become abstract how much dollars, how much a Bitcoin will get you in dollars. But I think to the house price as well, like just as a thought exercise, can you imagine going to buy a house and somebody quoting you the price of the house in Bitcoin and you understanding exactly how much value that is to yourself and being like, okay, that's a good deal. Or being like, yeah, it's a bit overpriced. I'm going to negotiate down. Like I'll give you, and then you quote back a Bitcoin. Can you imagine like negotiating price in Bitcoin with somebody like in a real conversation nowadays? We're a long, long way from doing it, but eventually it will come down the road. We're at store of value. Unit of account is going to come. Method of exchange is working, but unit of account is going to be the last one. But I just find it like you were saying, like Bitcoin, you learn so much about it, and it really stimulates. It's an intellectual subject at the moment as well. It really stimulates like curiosity, and it's really rewarding to find out a little bit of information about it because it unlocks the next step of understanding. And with that, you get more questions and you just delve and delve and delve. But sometimes I just like have these thought exercises where I'm like, can you imagine like negotiating at a marketplace in Satoshis? Like, okay, I'll give you like X amount of Satoshis for like these 3 apples. Like, okay, well, do me like 5 for this price. And having like a whole new monetary language that we're using between people and everybody understanding that conversation. That's like something way off in the future, but maybe not as well.
I've thought about that as well. And I'm like, it's a little weird, but I'm like, it's no less weird than going to a different country and using their currency and having to get used to those new digits and what those digits represent in value. Like if I go to the US, those digits are different than the Canadian digits. Ours are about 40% more for the same thing, right? And you just have to get used to that model of everything's 40% more expensive if I go there or 40% cheaper if they come here. Like it's just getting used to those digits. If I go to Zimbabwe and something might cost me $1 trillion and that's like an apple with their currency, right?
Yes.
So it's just digits.
If you go to a place that has like a very inflated currency, it can get really tricky. I was in Honduras a while ago, and what do they call them? Limpares. And the division like just didn't work. I was only there for a few days, so I just didn't get their money. You know, like Monopoly money. People are, went on holiday to this place, and it's like Monopoly money to me. Yeah, I think that's in terms of a unit of account. That's how Bitcoin is at the moment. But if you stay in these countries for like, if you have a 2-week vacation, usually after 2 weeks, you can work out if like a beer in this bar is cheaper than a beer in that bar. And if the 2 beers are cheaper than back home, right? So you can very quickly work out like the value of things. I suppose it's like anything, technological adoption. Like we're very like able to adapt as humans. We get very used to things very quickly without realizing it.
Yes.
Internet, like technology is like a great example. Like how internet native are we now? But only within my memory, it was a whole new thing. But nowadays, like I'm speaking to you via a live stream. It's just wild. It's like, this is normal for me now. Yeah. And that type of shift is coming. And I think it could happen a lot quicker than we think. I'm so happy to be ahead of the curve on this one. It's an absolute softball that got thrown to me. Like, hey, you want to pick up this Bitcoin thing? I was like, yes, please. I feel like when all of this happens, when this huge like chasm is bridged on the adoption curve, when things really ramp up, I'll be like, wow, this is a beautiful thing. And we'll just get to watch it play out in front of us. We're doing harder work now, but in I don't know when I'm so excited about that, like not knowing when it's going to really arrive and will become the fish in the aquarium. And I'll be saying to the other guy, like, I told you so. They'll be like, what do you mean? Yeah. They were like, I was here. Like I was doing this thing. They're like, oh yeah. Thanks. And I'd be like, yeah, but we're all here now, buddy. Yeah. They were like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's so hard to see now, but it is happening one person at a time, right? Like I now know that if I want to make accurate investing or business decisions, then I need to look at it priced through Bitcoin and not priced through fiat. because how can you price it? And, you know, it's the king's inch that's changing constantly, right? It's a new thumb every time I make a decision. So it's like, well, I can't rely on that anymore. And I trust this math and code much more than whatever central bank is in charge of printing these digits up. So it's like, I now have much more clarity in my life. And I feel like I'm actually seeing reality for the first time, because my reality's been distorted by mismeasurements my entire life. And now it's like, and then once you understand Jeff Booth's thesis, when you're like, oh, everything should be coming down in price because we build things better, faster, cheaper.
Everything's getting more and more efficient. Like, as humans, we're able to engineer and manufacture and distribute things at a ridiculous level. It's been exponential, that type of innovation, but it's not working out the same way. You know, Big Mac index is still, it's always going to be there. Like, you know, Bitcoin volatile to the upside, whereas fiat stable to the downside, essentially. So, and that's something I didn't even know that growing up, but I knew money was broken. I think we all do. Like, as soon as we experience money for the first time, even when we're super, super young, like being able to save for things, like, and it not working, like for people of my age, at least anyway, I think people who are like a fair bit older than me might remember like good memories of money, being like, yeah, I saved up and I bought myself my first car, and I saved up and bought my first car, and it was a piece of junk, and like it cost me so much to repair, and it just didn't ever feel like that investment came back. I think maybe this was a thing in the boomer generation that was a thing, and that's what defined them as boomers. It was a time of boom, but I've not experienced, like financially anyway, I mean, any type of boom where I'm like, hey, things are really ticking up. Like, you know,
actually being like, more of a bust. We should be the buster generation.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was very much like ambivalent to it. I was like, oh, well, the system's broken. What am I going to do?
I think that's it.
Quite nihilistic.
I think everybody knows the system is broken. Everybody can feel it. Everybody knows something is broken. I just don't think a lot of people connect it to that. It's likely the fact that the money is broken.
Yeah.
And that's the big paradigm shift with Bitcoin and thinking in Bitcoin instead of thinking in fiat, because you realize fiat's completely distorted and fake and whoop-de-woo, made out of thin air. And
even like the word fiat, right? Like 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been using the word fiat in our conversations if we'd have met, like, you know, over a coffee or whatever.
No.
But nowadays, like, it just becomes language. I used to teach language like in schools, and I learned French here in Quebec, but I was teaching English here in Quebec as well. So like the language we use is evolving as well. We have new ways of describing this new change, which is, you know, it represents a cultural shift. Culture always comes with new language. New language represents new ideas. And like, yeah, the word fiat is an old word, but just the way we use it so regularly now, it's like been reinvented, like behavior, like, you know what I mean? Like we were having a chat earlier about bad habits, and I was like, man, this is like the most fiat thing I do. Like we're actually like reusing old words, but because it's becoming like a cultural aspect as well to this. So it's been reflected in the language we use for sure. So that's always a good sign of something that's up and coming. Is the way that we talk about it. So it reflects new ideas.
You just see it like once you understand the money system and how it works, when your mechanic is telling you about the planned up obsolescence of the car parts, you're like, oh, fiat.
Yeah.
They do it. That's just,
you just shrug your shoulders and say fiat. You know?
Yeah. It's just hidden inflation, right? Yeah. It's their way of trying to beat inflation because they have to. So they make it obsolete so that you go back and buy more parts, buy more cars, spend more money so that they can outrun the money printer.
Keep that economy rolling, man. Keep that economy rolling. This is the thing. It's like, I always just felt that economy was like a bad word. And even nowadays, like with some of my friends, like the capitalist thing doesn't stick. People are like, yeah, like, but that's bad. Like capitalism's bad. Like making profits bad. Like being rich is bad. And having wealth and things. And I think that's a reflection of how bad things were, that people didn't even want to strive to have wealth to like, you know, like in 5 years, I'll be better off than I am now. That had been lost as an idea, and it just mutated on itself to being like, you know, like capitalism bad, which it isn't. It's free market. It's being able to exchange things and being able to sell things and like bet on your future and work things so things get better. But because everything was so broken, I was a part of that as well. There's like just this nihilism of like, I'm going to abandon all idea of ever making any type of profit or gathering any type of wealth because it's morally corrupt. It's not. It's the money that we use in that system that's morally corrupt. But when you change that, you start to really become a lot more optimistic about the future, which is what our generation needs as well. Because I still talk to friends about like Bitcoin, and then obviously we have to talk about money, and then it just becomes like a toxic conversation for a lot of these people. Like talking about money, and it's a real shame. Because you can see the kind of like désespoir, like the kind of lack of hope in that tone when they talk about money, or like, you know, we're doing our best, like that kind of struggle, rather than like a thrive. Like young people should feel like they're thriving. They have so much time, talent, potential, ideas, that they don't need to feel like they're struggling. They need to feel like the world is theirs, and they can engineer, and they can innovate, and they can build. And they can't do that at the moment. So there's so much talent just being like not forgotten about, but just being like extinguished, because people feel like quite like, what difference can I make? What can I do? Like, I'm just in the trenches here, you know, trying to make payments. And it's a shame. Like, we could be so much further towards like building civilization if this kind of, I'm speaking to myself and yourself here as well, because I think that's kind of where I was for a while. And that's why I left finance. I was like, hey, I don't want to play into this system. I wanted to do education, but then it was just like, yeah, let's just plug away at that. But I'm like, nah, man, like there's so much more out there. I want to get really jazzed up about what's coming down the works. And I am now. So I wish that to a lot of people. And then, you know, sometimes these are like the hardest conversations I have. Like I can hold webinars, and I can go to events where people are already like open-minded and Bitcoin curious, or have some. And those are great conversations, but some of the hardest conversations are still like on a Saturday night, I'll go out with some buddies to a restaurant, and we'll sit around and they'll be like, hey, how's work going? And for me, it's not work. Like this is the thing. This is my thing. So I don't shut up about it, but they're like, yeah, okay, man. Like, and it's still a difficult conversation, which just proves where we are, you know, in between me imagining like us being the fish in the aquarium and sitting down on a Saturday at a restaurant and just being like, there's so much you guys don't understand. Like, I just wish I could communicate it over one supper. But it's a whole change in thinking. And unfortunately, we've been blinkered with fiat. But it's coming. And it's whether people are skeptical or not, like I can just see it playing out right in front of my eyes. So it keeps me very optimistic.
Well, I think it's happening now. I mean, the longer you've been in Bitcoin, the better and easier life is getting for you, because your purchasing power is going up, your options in life are going up, and you realize you have an escape from the guaranteed further destruction of the current system we're in. Like one system must get worse. You realize at a certain point, one system must get worse. Like it has to, because it's on a broken ledger, and it's just the engineering of it. Like, I don't care who's in power, like it has to actually get worse. But then one system, because it's built on a truth-based ledger tied to energy, and once you understand why that even matters, you realize this system keeps getting better.
Yep.
And there's more and more good news in this system and more bad news in that system. And then it just eventually, like,
you jump boat.
You jump boat, and you just mentally are like, I need to just stop paying attention to all that, because it's doomed to fail anyways.
Yeah.
And it's not going to really serve my mental health to keep paying attention to it.
It's a little bit to my detriment, but at the same time, it's good for my mental health. Is like you eventually just watch less and less of like the news or what's going on, or like what people are complaining about. You know, it's good to stay informed, but if it's just like some misery show and like some sob fest, or even worse, like some hysterical anxiety inducing like bad news about conflict. And once you've dug into like, you know, like war is fiat, like everything that we're going through, the media is bought, like, and then you start taking steps away from it. You're like, yo, I'm going to look after myself. I'm going to look after the food I eat. I'm going to like live slower. Like, you're like, whoa, okay, this is a big change. So sometimes stuff comes along at the Saturday supper in the restaurant. They'd be like, yo, did you hear about this thing? I was like, wait, what? They were like, it's everywhere. I was like, no, it's not for me. Like, I've chosen to put my energy somewhere else. And plus, like, you know, everything's growing, but as well, like, to come back to the meetup thing, like the network of people I'm meeting is also changing as well. You know, like, I am gathering wealth and my options are opening in front of me, and I'm spending my time differently, but the people I'm getting to know as well is like mind blowing. Like I'm having such amazing conversations with people who are already in Bitcoin that are when we're not always talking about Bitcoin, we'll be talking about like all of these different books they've read, or like this project they've got, or this thing they've built, or their family, or their spirituality. Just so many different subjects of conversations with very like high value, high IQ people, that even that is moving things along. I feel like I'm making like more friends than when Facebook just launched in like 29 or whatever. Like, like add. Like, there's a lot of people coming into my sphere now, and that's thanks to being plugged into a more powerful network, on the social level as well. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, a lot of hope, man. Bitcoin is hope. I'm glad you and I found it, and I just hope more and more people find it, because it does provide me a lot of hope in my life, and an antidote to maybe fiat. So that's
why
fiat
I call
thinking.
myself an evangelist, man. Like, I set up the platform, but like, I just wish more and more people come to me, and I'll always be ready to spend time, like, whether it be like late night or like in a midweek or wherever it may be. If anybody's got questions, I always stay like super open to discussing this one thing that I really care about, because it brings all these things we've mentioned. I think it's more than just number go up. It's an increase in our life. It's something that'll make us benefit from our limited time that we have here on this planet. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't be wasting all of this time worrying about things that weren't chosen by us and that are broken. We should be able to opt for something a lot brighter and be able to benefit from the time we have. So yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the job title of evangelist for a long time. Educational developer sounds a bit more clinical. I really do like that kind of like that orange focus, like very like optimistic kind of way of seeing things, because I've experienced it as well. And speaking with everybody around me as well, it's that type of move towards something better. So I want to stay in this fight and offer it to as many people as possible in the time I have.
Cool, man. I think we should wrap here. That was a great little kind of way to end off. People can go to rockstarbtc.ca to sign up for a Bull Bitcoin account. That's using the Rockstar link, and that will get them a discount on all transaction fees going forward for buying or selling Bitcoin. I believe it's a 25% discount on those transaction fees. So a nice chunk of savings for all of your future buying and selling of Bitcoin if you go to rockstarbtc.ca. And aside from that, I love the new platform. It's pretty cool. I got to get used to it still, because I'm used to the old one. Yeah. But it's great. The one last thing actually I want to talk about is, what's PayJoin?
PayJoin is basically like, it's like, instead of like, Bitcoin is based on inputs and outputs, mm-hmm. and analyzing the input of the transaction and the output of the transaction, you can actually kind of gather what they call heuristics, which are clues about the source of the funds. Usually if the input is going from sender over to the receiver, there's also a change output. So you can assume that change output has gone back to the sender because you changed the Bitcoin out. PayJoin basically, it populates the inputs with more UTXOs, so that the outputs, you can't exactly tell which output went to which person. So essentially what the PayJoin enables on the wallet is, you can actually put extra UTXOs into the inputs, so that when it's a bit like a sausage factory, I suppose. There's more going in, so when it comes out on the other side, it's a bit harder to work out whose was what. So it essentially protects privacy. It's a privacy tool, but it's being built into wallets on the back end, so people don't need to master it. It's like a lot of things in Bitcoin. It's really good to know what they do and how they work and how to use them, but we're moving more and more towards like integration of all of these cool features of Bitcoin into day-to-day applications, wallets, exchanges. But essentially, it's that. Yeah, it's adding extra inputs.
So how does that help me? Like, what does that do for me?
Essentially, it protects your privacy. It'll protect your privacy, because eventually, like if there are companies or authorities or organizations that want to scrape as much, because the blockchain is public, they can scrape the blockchain and look at all the transactions, and they can gather information about addresses and origins and outputs, so that they can gather like a group set of like, that probably is the same guy. So PayJoin basically obfuscates that by making it breaks the heuristics, it breaks the clues. Because on one transaction, you're not going to be able to tell exactly who is where and how much they have in Bitcoin. But if you gather like a large amount of these transactions and piece them together using like big data analysis or chain analysis, you can actually kind of gather like transactions which are all grouped together and be like, that's probably the same guy. So he probably has this much Bitcoin. But using pain join will start to obfuscate that, so you can protect your Bitcoin on chain by essentially using this tool, which populates more inputs and gives unclear outputs. So yeah, it basically separates.
So can my coins still be traced back to the exchange where I bought them, and then that exchange is tied to my identity because it's KYC? So then those coins can be identified as my coins that I bought on an exchange?
It depends what exchange and how it's operating is. If you look, take some time to look around on the blockchain, and sometimes you can find that through these types of analysis, it'll be marked like the name of the exchange next to it. So you can't see who they're sending to, but you can see that they're being sent from that exchange. Bull Bitcoin, we always prioritize privacy. So this is why like tools like PayJoin are super interesting to us, and that's why we always try and protect our clients' privacy as much as possible. Bitcoin is working in a way that it is a public ledger, but there are now tools that make that public ledger even harder to be able to interpret and break some of the heuristics. So PayJoin is one of those tools. But yeah, I invite people to just have a look around. Like, it is a public ledger. You can, even if you're not like a hardcore Bitcoiner knowing exactly what everything is, it's just really fun just to be able to look at the transactions and, oh, okay, so I can see this thing and I can't see that thing, and get familiar with what the public side of Bitcoin looks like, which is the blockchain. So yeah, check that out. You can usually see like the big exchanges are usually identified on the blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Yeah, you can use rockstarbtc.ca. And Pablo, I just want to thank you, man, for jumping on. That was a great conversation. And
we love hanging out with you guys, like whether it be like in real life out in Oakville or just hanging out on a podcast. We got so much time and appreciation for you guys over at Rockstar. We have such a blast with you guys. This is like a really great partnership, kind of hangout, kind of time spent together is always super fun. So yeah, very happy to be in connect with you guys, with the brothers and all of the team out there. So all the best.
Awesome, buddy. You too.